what I learned from David Sinclair, there's two substances that you can take, which I've been using for the last year or so since I started watching some of his podcasts, because I started going in this rabbit hole of sleep, and then I started watching like anti-aging podcasts and stuff that came out of that. And there's two common elements that seem widely agreed upon by, like the community out there that deals with anti-aging, the doctors, the experts, the Hubermans of the world and all that sort of stuff. And it seems like resveratrol and NMN, you get them both in pill form. It's just N as in Norman, M as in Mark, and N as in Norman again. There's the other compound, and it's niacinamide, blah, 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 or something like that. I'll obviously mispronounce it, so I'll just give you guys the acronym, NMN. And resveratrol is the other one, which I probably pronounced incorrectly as well. But those two things are highly recommended by the community, and they seem to work. So that's the first thing that I would recommend you taking a look at. Now, you can pop as many pills as you want, supplements and all this sort of stuff. And some of them can be effective, and some of them are not very effective, and some are effective for some people and not effective for other people, sort of thing. But before you start getting into supplementation and just doing like cookie cutter, okay, I'm going to take a protein powder. Okay, I'm going to take a vitamin D product and a vitamin C product, sort of thing, like to incorporate into my lifestyle choices, because I think that's what I need. But before you start going and doing that, I'm going to take you down a deep rabbit hole of what does work very well and what I've been doing. And I know for a fact the results that I'm getting out of it are very, very positive. So what I'm going to give you guys tonight is going to be very useful. So pay attention. The link to call in and ask questions will be available halfway through the show or so. Moff's going to be in the green room. Make sure your audio and everything is up to par. And let's get right into it. So the next thing is you should definitely get your DNA analyzed. And for some people, that might sound weird. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight is going to be like, well, that's just too weird. I'm just going to drink my Bud Light and sit here, and that'll be all. And that's cool too. So this is the result of my DNA assessment. And Dr. Anthony J is somebody I've had on the podcast twice now. So if you're unfamiliar with him, he wrote a book called Estrogeneration. The subtitle is How Estrogenics Are Essentially Making You Fat, Sick, and Infertile. And he's well researched. He did his PhD on cholesterol, did another one on hormones. So definitely knows what he's talking about. And I was introduced to him through a mutual friend. And what you do is you basically get your raw DNA code through 23andMe, which isn't expensive. It's around $100. I don't know what the total cost is today, but they always have coupons floating around for Black Fridays and stuff like that if you want to wait for it. But it's not going to cost you a lot of money. So let's just start with that. And what it does is these are the colorful charts that they do. And, people are all like, oh, look, I'm 27%, Hasidic Jew and 13% Palestinian and, 37% East Asian or Mongolian or something. Like, there's all these like breakdowns, which people think are all pretty and all that sort of stuff. And they're like, I know my background now. I know my ancestry. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's really useless information at that point. But what you can do is you can download the code from their website, and it gives you all the genetic code that you need to give to Dr. Anthony J, who runs it through his program. And then he has all of your DNA assessed, and it tells you where your deficiencies are. Your strengths don't really matter. It's like if you have really good bones, awesome. If you have really good muscle fiber, great, sort of thing. So a lot of this stuff here, and I did a full breakdown. So if you're a member of my private community, guys, there's a full breakdown that I posted to Zenforo. You should go watch it, because the entire conversation I have with Dr. J is there. And we go through all of these line by line, explaining them in extreme detail. But what I have here is the summary, and it basically highlights genetic anomalies, deficiencies, whatever it is that you want to call it. But areas of concern is what I would distill it down to. And he can get down to, so I'll just read a few of these off to you. He can tell you if you've got the FOXO3 gene, which is an uncommon gene that gives you a higher likelihood of living to the age of 100 or higher. I have that, so it should be around for a long time for you guys. It can tell you if you're prone to Alzheimer's. It can tell you how you react to stress and what supplements you can use if you react difficultly to, you know, if you have a difficult reaction to stress. He'll make some recommendations as far as like what you can take because you have a particularly annoying stress gene that reacts very easily. Talk about anxiety. You can talk about how your body metabolizes caffeine, alcohol, your diabetic profile, how prone you are to having diabetes, inflammation in your body, what kind of foods might cause inflammation. Like there's a dairy gene, and if you don't have this gene, then dairy in your body causes excessive inflammation. Okay, noted, right? And I'll get into dairy a little bit more later on. Diabetes, heart lipid panels. So on my heart lipid panels, you know, you can see some notes. I don't know if you can see the highlights in the notes here, but the lighting doesn't really work. Anyway, so there's a lot of detailed information here, and he's telling me you need to keep an eye on fasted triglycerides. Tells me what range that I need to be in. You need to keep an eye on the LPA gene and recommends niacin taken before a sauna. Interesting. I haven't revisited this in a while. So taking the niacin before a sauna helps with the Lp(a). It's a marker in your blood which indicates that you have a higher likelihood for heart disease or stroke or stuff like that. He also recommends me keeping a close eye on homocysteine. So some of these things were not included in my blood labs when I was running them before. And I basically take this to my doctor that's doing my healthcare, and I'm like, okay, look, you know, I've analyzed my DNA. Here's some of the blood labs that he wants me to keep an eye on. So let's add them to the test. Okay, no problem. He knows who this guy is. He's well-researched. He takes a look at his site, takes a look at the report. Looks good to me, right? So we add those in there. Leaky gut issues. What kind of, you know, if you need to avoid gluten, because, you know, there's some people that have that gluten intolerance. Pesticides, seed oils. He'll tell you if he's got, so there's a plant sterol gene, which is extremely rare. Apparently it only exists in something like less than 2% of people out there, but essentially plant cholesterols was one. I wouldn't have known this. My doctor wouldn't have ever known this. Anybody running my blood labs would have never known this. The only reason why this showed up and I figured this out was because I did my 23andMe. I had Dr. J run the raw code through his algorithm, and we figured out exactly what my DNA is all about. And I have a rare gene where I have an issue with plant cholesterols. So I can't metabolize a lot of the stuff that I've been eating, actually, nuts, seeds, seed oils, avocados, olive oil, anything that's a fatty plant, I can't have. And it just bungs up my system, and it causes inflammation, and it affects your hormones, right? I mean, potentially I might have been able to have avoided TRT if we had caught this before I was 40 and did something about it back then. But I caught it after the fact, and I'm already, you know, years into TRT, so it's not like you can come off and change that right now. But plant cholesterols apparently can have a deleterious effect on your hormone panel and have issues with testosterone production, high conversions to estrogen, all that sort of stuff. So these are all things that you can only discover if you have your DNA fully analyzed. Bilirubin levels, I need to keep an eye on those, and I need to use a UV light if they get too low. All kinds of stuff. Wicked information. So that would be a definite must do. The cost is not that much. Your 23andMe, like I said, it's around $100. He'll analyze your DNA raw code, print out everything for you or email it to you, and spend an hour and a half, so 90 minutes with you on Skype. And I think it's like $400. That is a fucking steal. For $500, you can get everything that you need to know about your genetic issues and opportunities to correct lifestyle. You'll sleep better. You'll put on muscle easier. You'll lose fat easier. You know, like you'll do everything better when your body's optimized. So that would be the first recommendation that I have. Very, very high up on the list. Not that expensive and exceptionally useful. I found a ton of value out of going through this, and I've incorporated it in my day-to-day. Next thing. So my health report file over here. Blood labs. Here we go. The food intolerance test. This is the other one. So these are called MRT tests in the States. The Canadian blood lab office that I use is Dynacare, and they don't have the MRT test, but they have an equivalency test, which is apparently almost as good. But these, they're about $300. I get my labs run every quarter, usually anywhere from 4 to 6 months. I mean, the last one I did was 6 months ago. So, sorry, the longest span that I had between them was about 6 months. So this one over here reveals exactly what you have a intolerance to. And that doesn't mean that you can't eat it or you can't consume it. It just means that it doesn't cooperate real well with your gut biome, with your genetic code, with how you are. So all they do is when they take your blood, then, I mean, there's an explanation. I don't know if it's on this page. Dealing with antibodies, I believe, is what it does. So food allergies produce, hang on a sec. Right, sorry, up here. Food intolerance is not the same as a food allergy. Allergic reactions are classified as type 1 hypersensitivity and involve a substance in your body called IgE antibodies, which are different from the IgG antibodies involved in food intolerance. Food allergies produce an immediate reaction after you eat the food. For example, peanuts and shellfish. Anybody that's got those extreme allergies pretty much die after eating them. Symptoms can include rash and sneezing, difficulty breathing, and even life-threatening due to strong response called anaphylaxis. Food intolerance reactions are classified as type 3 hypersensitivity, and they can occur within hours or days after consuming the food. So that's the difference between an intolerance and an allergy, and this tests for intolerances. So basically, if you put this stuff in your body, inflammation rises, and it causes your body to work harder than what it needs to process those calories. So right at the top for most people will be dairy, and it's right up there for me. Egg whites. They say the reason why most people have an intolerance to egg whites is because they use the, I think it's called the albumin or something like that. I'm totally pronouncing it wrong, but it's that like film, like when you hard boil an egg and you crack the shell, it's that, like that film that sometimes is in the way. It's that nasty film. They use that with vaccines to create, certain vaccines. So because the vaccine is designed for your body to fight whatever, it sends in your body, you tend to have the same reaction with that part of the egg, apparently as you get older. So it's just weird shit. But yeah, anyway, so it'll identify a bunch of stuff that you've got intolerances to, and you just take it out of your diet and see what happens. And the biggest differences that I noticed is bloating went down a lot for me, and so did gas. Like I used to fart a lot. I'll be honest. And as soon as I did this test and I took out like the top, like there's basically 3 sections. There's orange, blue, and then there's like basically nothing, which is the green area, meaning like eat as much of it, as you want. And if you take out like basically the top orange ones, which are the ones that are creating the most issues, for your body, holy smokes, what a difference, man. Again, this test is not that expensive. It's called a food intolerance test, and there's 200 plus metrics on this one. They have a cheaper one, which has 150, I think, or a little bit less. And what do they cost? I'm trying to remember the cost. It's like $300, maybe $350. It's only a few $100, and it tests your blood up against these antibodies to see what kind of intolerance exists in your body to these certain foods. And you just take them out of your diet. And it's not like you have to stop eating them. Like I haven't completely stopped with dairy. I still put cream in my coffee, just a little bit, and I'll have ice cream from time to time, but very, very rarely. But when I do, farting comes back, right? So, it's a small minor change, but it makes a huge difference in my opinion. I got a few more here, but before I continue with those, I'm going to drop the StreamYard link and just pin it up at the top. Oh, it looks like Moff's already done it. Yeah. So just pin that up at the top. And if you guys want to participate in the Q&A, you have to watch live and you have to be on YouTube watching live because that's where you get the link. Next one. Blood labs. Yeah, I might as well talk about blood labs. So I had this conversation with my dad the other day. It was Father's Day yesterday. So happy belated Father's Day to all the men out there doing that difficult job. And he had his labs with him, and he's like, Rich, a lot about this stuff. Come sit with me and explain this. And I'm like, okay, fine. Let's see what the labs say. So I can log in with my phone and get my data here. And I think with when I counted it, he had only like 10 lines. And the lines that he had, that this doctor, and his doctor, did the standard, oh yeah, everything's fine, it's within range, stuff. And my dad's like, yeah, I'm always lethargic. I'm super tired. I don't know what's wrong. Anyway, they got him on all kinds of like cholesterol meds and stuff like that. And it puts all of your cholesterol levels down in the basement. And most people don't know this, but your hormones are made from cholesterol. So that's probably why he's so lethargic. That, and he's probably got low T, because if you have low cholesterol, then you're not going to make any T, so your testosterone is going to go down. So I'm looking at mine here, and I usually get anywhere from 64 line items up to 75, depending on what my doctor's running. My dad only got 10, and I'll tell you why he only got 10. It's because he's going to the free healthcare clinics, right? The family doctor, the jack of all trades, the guy that doesn't really give a shit. Let's be honest. The guy that I deal with, and don't ask me for his contact information because I'm really going to sell him up here because he's already busy. The only people I give his contact information to are guys in my community that live in the area. That's it. But he is so thorough, and he's partnered with a guy that's basically a lifelong biohacker. He's like in his 60s, in phenomenal shape, former competitive bodybuilder, judge bodybuilding shows, in excellent shape, knows how to deal with men and women's hormone panels, all this stuff. The guy knows stuff like these are the people that you want to deal with when it comes to managing your health as you get older. You go to the general practitioner, you go to the grocery store, and you put like the shit that's in the freezers and the cans and the packaging, stuff full of preservatives in your buggy. You take it home and you eat that, and you don't take a good look at your blood labs. I guarantee it's not only going to shorten your life, which doesn't really matter, but the quality of your life is going to go down as well, right? Like, I'd rather have 80 years of quality life than 110 years of this FOXO3 gene or whatever it is that I have, makes me live to over 100 in like a miserable shape. I'd rather be fully optimized and live less, right? So the point that I'm getting at is your blood labs are incredibly important. I talked about it in a chapter in my book, in the Unplugged Alpha, and I broke down exactly in that chapter, which, by the way, is going to have some new information, and in the follow-up book too, exactly how TRT works, how the hormone clinics work, and all this sort of stuff. But you need to find not just the jack of all, not just like, if you go to one of these places and they run 10, 15, line items on your blood labs, and they go, okay, well, let's just give them a little script here for some DHEA, and give them a script for some testosterone, and give them a little script for some HCG, and then send him off on his way. Oh, wait, hang on a sec, come back. Let's give you a AI as well to make sure that your estrogen doesn't go too high. Now go away. And if you're not measuring those up against your blood labs, your DNA, your genetics, your food sensitivities, right? Like, if you're not optimizing in every area, then there's holes. It's like Swiss cheese, right? Yeah, it's cheese. Yeah, you can eat it, but it's got holes everywhere, right? I don't like that. I'm at the stage where it's like, I want to be thorough with this stuff. I want to get good results out of it. I want to look at, like, I look around at some people and they're like 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years younger than me, and they look like shit, like completely out of shape, man boobs, just, they can do a lot better. And I know that it's hard because nobody is given this information. It's not clear. It's not concise. You often have to go looking for it. I went looking for a lot of this stuff because I had bad sleep at one time. And I have a video on this podcast list talking about sleep and everything I did to improve that. So that's another story, but I'll keep going because we got to take some of these call-ins over here. So we got the food sensitivity test, which is also called the MRT test in the US. Blood labs, make sure you get detailed blood labs. Look at everything: liver, kidney, do a urine test, do your minerals, do heavy metals, check and see if you have mercury. A lot of people don't know this, but if you eat seafood, you will have high levels of mercury. I found out because my doctor was like, well, something's off here. And I said, well, hang on a sec. When was it? Like, we worked together on this stuff, and I'm smart enough to ask questions because I've read up on a lot of this shit, and I've watched a lot of podcast interviews. And I said to him, I go, we haven't checked mercury yet. I go, run a mercury test and let's see what comes back, the lab. So we go back, mercury sky high. And he goes, well, what are you eating? And I said, well, you wanted me to increase my protein, because I also train with this guy too, by the way. He's my personal trainer. And he goes, I wanted you to eat more protein. I go, so I did. And one of the things I like to eat that's, animal protein is tuna. So I was eating a shitload of tuna, probably at least one serving of tuna per day. Some days, maybe two. Tuna out of a can, tuna poke, from the freezer, which is basically raw tuna. It's like sushi grade type of tuna. So I was eating a lot of tuna. And he's like, that's it. It's a tuna. Any old fish from the ocean is going to have very high levels of mercury, right? So salmon, he said, is pretty safe because they're young fish. They spawn every year. They get a new one every year, sort of thing. So they're not swimming around for 15 years, eating up all the shit in the ocean and mercury's, collecting in their body. So these are things that, again, you have to consider, you have to take a look at. And it's like, okay, well, how do you get the mercury out of your system now? Because now that's just saturated in your body, and it's not good for you. There's all kinds of downstream effects. Brain fog is probably like one of the biggest ones, and one of the biggest complaints that I've had over the last couple of years, right? So he's like, okay, well, let's go on to the next tip, and it's vitamin infusions. What are we at? We're at the half-hour mark. And it's vitamin infusion, so IV infusions. The highest rate of absorption that you're going to get in a supplement is in my supplement line over here. Okay. The company that makes these, their biggest obsession is the absorption rate. The only way to get a higher absorption rate than what's in those caplets is with an IV infusion. That's where they take the needle and they go right in your vein. They hang the bag up and it drips, and you're sitting there for 45 minutes. If you follow me on Instagram, you see sometimes I post videos of me doing the IV drip and what's in the bag, and a link usually to something so you guys can go and research it for yourself. But IV infusions can be very helpful. So I've identified that I've got a mercury issue. So how the hell do you get out of your system? All right. I asked my doctor, he goes, well, we can do an IV infusion with something called EDTA, which essentially removes metals from your body. They use it a lot for people with brain fog, with heavy metals in their blood and their organs and stuff like that. And it helps your body metabolize and get rid of it. Another thing you can do is you can sit in the sauna and sweat it out of your skin. That's another way that your body gets rid of metals in your body, is basically sweat it through your skin. So I've been doing that, I've been doing the sauna. I've been doing the IV infusions with the EDTA. There's another really good one called PlaqueX, which is another IV infusion, which gets rid of any kind of plaque buildup on your arteries. So I have a genetic predisposition to heart disease, and my dad's side of the family. My dad had a heart attack when he was in his 60s. He had a triple bypass. He's still alive and kicking well today. But there's IV infusions that I can implement because I go there every week, right? It's about $180 per bag. Way cheaper, again, to have vitamins than it is to do the IV infusion, but the IV infusion is a lot more efficient, and your body absorbs pretty much 100% of what you're putting in. So we do PlaqueX, which is great for removing plaque from your arteries. That has a whole bunch of benefits. You get plaque out of any of your blood vessels that's building up around your heart, in your brain, in your organs, in your penis. Like, all of this stuff will help blood flow better, and you'll live better, right? You'll get more oxygen in all your body parts. Everything will work properly when you want them to work properly. Plaque does build up in your body the older that you get. People don't know this, but if you take vitamin D without an MK7 variant of vitamin K, then you will move calcium into your blood vessels, which will create plaque. And, we're always told to take vitamin D, but there's not a lot of people that pay attention to the fact you need a D/K variant, which is a blend. That's what mine is, by the way, in my lineup. And you guys will see a link to that, below at the unpluggedalpha.com. You can just go to the unpluggedalpha.com/store or supplements. Just go to the site and you'll see it there. But these are all things that you have to contemplate. And then, of course, the third thing is just a standard vitamin bag. And the cool thing about the vitamin bag is it's like an a la carte restaurant. Like, he's got all of these vials laid out with the syringes in front of them, the bag over here, and you basically have a designer bag, right? And, he's like, okay, what are we working on? Because he's training me, he's taking care of my diet. And he's like, well, since we're working on the training part, let's get some amino acids in there. We'll get some citrulline in there. We'll get some arginine in there. That'll increase nitric oxide. That'll increase blood flow. He starts putting some vitamins and some minerals in there that I'm deficient in that show the deficiencies in my blood lab. That's the cool thing about working with a clinic like this that really knows what the fuck they're doing. It's just like, I can get my hormone panel fixed there. I can get my training done there. I can get my diet done down there. Anything that shows up as a deficiency in my blood labs, just put it in the vitamin bag, right? And it drips in. I'll tell you something. I've probably never felt better in the last 10 or 15 years. And it's only been the last couple of years that I've been doing this, right? So it's just something to contemplate. I've mentioned it in passing before in some videos. When people sometimes call in, and I said that I might do a full show. So this is your full show on it, right? This is pretty much everything that I've done that's moved the bar as far as self-care and helping, delay a lot of the issues with aging, because it's going to happen to all of us. And again, if you guys don't know how something works, how can you fix it? That's why I say it's important. Run your 23andMe, get your DNA analyzed, get a food sensitivity test, to see what causes the inflammation in your body, and then manage your blood labs accordingly. Like if you have issues down the road in your family with Alzheimer's, there's things that you can do to prevent Alzheimer's. There really is. If you have issues in your family with diabetes, or you might be prone to diabetes, there's things that you should be doing to manage and test in your blood labs to make sure you're not heading in that direction where you have to take insulin pens and check your blood so often, all that sort of stuff. These are all really important things to look at. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.